Welcome to Navigating Love and Immigration. I'm your host, Megan Pastrana. Falling in love is exciting. Maintaining a healthy relationship takes work. And when you're going through an immigration process, you are faced with unique challenges. This podcast is for anyone in a cross-cultural relationship who finds themselves lost in the labyrinth of U.S. immigration. We will interview relationship experts, explore the stories of real couples, and provide important tips on starting the next chapter of your lives together. Welcome to this week's episode of Navigating Love and Immigration. I have a special guest with me here today, Barry Selby. And Barry, thank you so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Megan. I'm glad to jump into this conversation.
I'm so excited. So Barry, I'll back up a little bit. Barry's a love and relationship expert and very apropos, right? Immigration for couples. And Barry and I just had this amazing conversation a few weeks ago. We met in an ethical sales coaching container, and we've just all met really amazing people. But Barry and we sparked this conversation, and we both work with couples. And he had shared something with me called relationship readiness, and I was very intrigued. That's not something I've ever heard of, and I would love to have you tell us a little bit more about your work in the world, and then can we just dive into what is relationship readiness?
Sure. And also be transparent. Primarily, my audience is mostly single people, but I do work with couples as well who are willing to get the help. I want to say need, because a lot of people need the help, don't ask for it. Ones who are willing to get the help, just to be transparent on that level. The reason I talk about relationship readiness is because if anybody's like me, because I've been through this myself, I didn't choose relationships from a conscious place or do the inner work before I went into a relationship. I would just go on the dating apps, or this is before the dating apps when I was doing this. I would just go out with somebody and we'd hit it off and be a relationship. What I discovered, though, through my own journey, and I've been through quite a few different experiential transformations, including a master's degree in spiritual psychology, which taught me some real key principles, is that we have this tendency as human beings to date people who remind us of the love we had when we were kids, simply put. And to jump into the deep end right away, there's a book by Bruce Lipton called The Biology of Belief that he wrote many years ago. He's a really wonderful speaker and teacher and author. But in The Biology of Belief, he talks about that like the way I frame it, and it's my languaging, is that we don't get born with user manuals. When we come in, when we get born, we're clean slate, innocence, loving bundle of noise and joy and everything else. And our parents also don't usually have user manuals when they get us. So the way they raise us tends to be more instinctual, or unfortunately, it is informed by the behavior that they learned when they were kids. This is the thing about where we learn. It's this sort of pattern goes back generation after generation, because that's the way we learn. We learn by experience. That's the way humans learn. And so when we're very young, we watch the adults, being our parents primarily, around us, and we sort of observe and witness what's happening without any judgment, good, bad, or indifferent. We just think that's the way it is. So the way that they share love with each other and with us becomes the template we believe love should be expressed naturally, because that's the way love is expressed in our environment, in our world. So then, and this is the fun part, so to speak, that's all going in pretty much unconsciously, just being sucked in like a sponge, because again, very young age, we don't have consciousness to choose to decide what's good, bad, or indifferent. We just go, that's the way it is. So it just sort of gets infused into our system. That unconscious area of our mind just is massive. It absorbs everything that's going on. And this is true about everything in life, whether it's health, food, affection, social norms, all those things we get imprinted with very young. And so relationship is part of that. Fast forward to about 6, 7, 8 years old, our conscious mind sort of comes online, so to speak, and becomes a discerner, like a bouncer on a club. It sort of has the velvet rope and lets things in by discernment, saying that's good or that's not, and I won't let that in, which is what we use to I won't say preserve us, but take care of ourselves. We tend to be more discerning as we get older. That's one of the benefits. However, that unconscious mind, that warehouse of information that went in when we were very young, is still there, but it's unconscious, so we don't think about it. So fast forward to adult life, and when we start dating, we are not realizing, but we're automatically using what we learned as very young kids what love is expressed as. So when we meet people, we will look for things without realizing it that are patterns that remind us or reflect to us how we were when we were young. In my own experience, my own example, just to put this up on the table, I grew up in a very loving family. I was lucky in that sense. My parents were together basically 60 years till my mum passed away. And the thing is, though, that in my dating life, I would be with a girl, when I'm a teen and a woman in my early 20s, where we would have a wonderful connection, great time, romantic, sexy, all that sort of stuff. But as soon as an argument happened, I would quit. Like there were raised voices, difference of opinion, there would be an argument, I would quit. And I didn't know why. I didn't question it. I think that's the way it is. There's an argument, we don't love each other, I'm out. That was kind of my logic, and I would quit. And that happened several times. I missed out on a lot of healing, makeup, sex, any of that stuff. But when I look back and realize, again, in my master's program, especially looking back at my childhood, I was raised in a family where arguments weren't part of the conversation. My parents, and this is because I would believe, like to say that I come from a very stoic, reserved Jewish English family. And so we didn't argue much. That was kind of like we to be blunt, we stuffed our emotions. It wasn't like we worked everything out peacefully. No, we just didn't express. Yeah. So I didn't have reference points that arguments and love could go together based on the way I was raised, which meant in relationship, if an argument showed up, love had to go away. So my wiring was such that it was automatic. I would leave because of that. Now, that's my experience. We all have our own experiences based on how we were raised. Some good, some bad, some indifferent. But I know from experience with some of my clients where they were wondering why they kept attracting abusive relationships. When they look back at their family dynamic, there was abuse in their family, or abandonment, or narcissism, or any patterns basically that were modeled when we were very young tend to repeat themselves with our adult relationships because that's the way we're wired automatically. So that's one of the things we don't talk about usually.
Wow. Yeah. I have had so many thoughts. I was kind of taking some notes too, because I know we've talked about this before, but it's just fascinating and to reflect on our own lives. And I was thinking about, my own patterns. I had I can be vulnerable here too. I appreciate your vulnerability. And so, reflecting on that, I did arguments were modeled for me, if you want to say that, but the leaning into the candid conversations, the things you want to say, but you don't want to ruffle any feathers, don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And that's a form of stuffing too. And and so I've paid attention to when you're with somebody for a long time, my husband and I know each other well, we know the things that we can say or how to say them that will be received well and maybe not. But that wasn't modeled. Yeah. Having those candid, difficult conversations and that stuffing, I can see that being a pattern. And so he and I are both on a growth journey. And so we've been better at, and we're continuing to grow, but sharing those things that feel uncomfortable. Like, don't run away if I tell you this thing, but you had to become cognizant of that pattern. And something that you were saying, that something happens in our childhood. Like, and you're talking about being a baby and not having, we don't have a user manual, anything like that. So you start playing out these patterns then when you're quote unquote, dating in high school. And then, like you said, going into your 20s. So last I checked, I don't remember seeing any classes like this in high school for people to become relationship ready. So how do people become what do you do?
Well, the thing is, so this is the thing. I've said this a few times, and it's become really interesting to talk about this. We have sex education in school, but not relationship skills at school. I don't understand the disconnect there. Isn't relationship more usable than sex education first, or it should be together? Something, So I definitely have that's one of my pet peeves. The thing is that like I said, I didn't know about this until I went through my master's degree. So many times I made mistakes before I figured this out and learned this one. I definitely have been teaching a lot, so hopefully people don't have to go through my 2-year journey I went through with my master's degree to learn this, so I can pass on the information to them through platforms like this. The challenge that people do, and that's why I talk about relationship readiness, is that because we don't think about this stuff, we don't deal with it. And so because it is unconscious, it's not something we are aware of because it's not in our awareness. So like you were saying with your husband, because you're both committed to growth, that's the thing, is there is a way through. Which is, if you're willing to look at your own stuff look in the mirror, really look in the mirror and notice. And I was doing my clients say, look, if you look at the last few relationships, if the same thing happened each time, you'll notice a common occurring pattern. That's a clue, because usually that's the thing that's been going on forever. And like I said, it becomes generational. I have had client experiences that have been amazing where a client basically healed a pattern of abuse and ended a cycle that went through 4 or 5 generations because she noticed that that was what her mother went through and then her grandmother. And it was something that went back many years. So in some ways, this is a lineage transformational experience. Not, I mean, for some people, it's like no big deal, but for some people, that's massive. And the thing about being ready for a relationship is people think, well, I am not dating anybody, so I'm free, then I'm ready. That's
Yep.
the simplistic way of putting it. I did. I mean, that's the way I did
That's
it
what I
myself.
thought. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. And I mean, it was almost something where I don't know if this was your experience growing up, but for a lot of especially my girlfriends, we talk about it was just like part of what you had to do next was you had to like find this other person to be complete, but you haven't really done the
Oh,
work on yourself. That's not relationship ready. That's why I'm just so fascinated by this
so let
concept.
me just illustrate that for a moment, because one of my favorite quotes to use in this context is from Jerry Maguire, which is "You complete me," which is the
Mm,
most inane and inaccurate statement you could ever say because nobody's incomplete.
exactly.
You complete me is probably the what's the word I'm looking for? The title or the epitaph for codependency.
Oh,
Because
yes.
and that's the
Yep.
thing is, my parents were extremely codependent, so I born into that pattern because I thought that's what love was looked like because I saw my parents do that. So definitely my relationships was immersed and frankly almost suffocating, which didn't help things. That's probably why the arguments happened in the first place. Because I didn't know any differently. That's what love meant. You just be like, and I've said this a lot recently because it comes up in my conversations, and I talk about how, you know, the presumption is when a relationship is where you're looking like nose to nose, face to face, you're looking each other's eyes. It's so romantic, so beautiful. The problem is when you're doing that, you can't see where you're going.
Yep.
So a relationship should really be side by side, facing the same direction, so that we can still be connected and still be in each other's energy and really loving each other. But you're walking the path together. That to me is what real rich relationship is about. Is that journey together.
Yep. I totally agree. And a thought that was coming up when you were saying that side by side, I've heard that with so many relationship experts and therapists that are always saying when you're having conversations, especially difficult conversations, taking a walk or being side by side instead of face to face, because it really is each of us individually on our growth journey and then the union, like a completely separate entity, but we are complete. And
Yeah.
I'm hearing from you too. So I want to make sure listeners or viewers don't start thinking, oh no, what are the parts of me that are broken? But it's really not about brokenness. It's about we all have patterns. It's about being
Yes.
human. So the first step is recognizing. Can you walk us through
Yes.
what else can come
I've
next?
said often, and you said it the same way. I just call it saying the first step is awareness. And
Mhm.
oftentimes awareness is all it takes, because when you become aware of something, you look at, oh, I don't need to do that anymore. It
Yep.
can be that easy. That's the thing. It's not that hard necessarily. However, some of those patterns that get deep seated that have been running for a long time may require some therapeutic or coaching or counseling guidance to facilitate the undoing or the rewiring of those. But
Mhm.
the thing is, and just to underscore what you said, nobody's broken. We all have our own challenges, and sometimes we take them very deeply within us, because especially if you're raised by parents where you hero worship them for some reason because they either made that role, where they're on pedestals, so you couldn't see them doing anything wrong. So then you end up having this internalized that we're broken somehow because they were so perfect. It's like, well, no, that's the thing. None of us are perfect. We're all doing the best we can. So
Mhm.
that's a vital piece of this work. And the power of that means that we have the power to change. And that is
Yeah.
the real freedom of this work. That's one reason I love doing the work I do, because seeing somebody sort of just almost rearrange themselves so they get themselves in a whole new paradigm is such a rewarding experience, because they see life in a whole new way, because they've changed how they live their lives, because they changed how they felt about it and how they saw themselves. Again, awareness being the first step.
Mhm. And yeah, and I appreciate you too earlier to clarify again that you work with individuals to become relationship ready.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's complex. I know it's complex to get to a point of saying, yes, I'm relationship ready. But are there some key like indicators that a person can know that they're ready to take that step to go from one to a union?
Well, a couple of simple ones. If you're looking for somebody else to save you, you're not ready for a relationship.
No kidding.
That's right. That was an easy one. That was low hanging fruit, so to speak.
But yeah.
But the thing is, what most of us don't do, and I didn't do for a long time, is have a relationship with myself.
Yeah.
The longest relationship we'll ever have is the one with the one in the mirror.
Yep.
And if we don't make that a priority for self-care, whatever that is, I don't mean necessarily like, falling in love with yourself, well, that doesn't a bad thing, but how you take care of yourself, how you treat yourself, how you listen to your own voice inside, how you take feedback, Because I used to be like, when someone said gave me a fear, it was negative, I would magnify it by 10 times and punish myself with it. Because I was in a place where I spent my teen years being bullied. So I was always in the wrong. And that was kind of the wiring I took on during my teen years. And that self-flagellation, basically, of using other people's negativity as weapons against myself, which other people do too, was a unnecessary but painful experience. And so I clearly know, and I definitely work with my clients to get this, that anything that happened to us doesn't make us who we are. We get to choose who we are. And that relationship with ourselves, which can be a lot about healing the wounds inside, but also taking care of ourselves. And that means mental, emotional, and physical and spiritual. So then we can become a much more self-fulfilled and self-reliant person. So when we meet in relationships, then we're not looking for that to fix us or make us whole. That breaks the codependent cycle.
Yeah. It goes back to the you complete me, that you're already complete, and just being okay with that.
Yeah,
that's powerful. I have a lot of different, so many thoughts that are going on, but and that's really what I've seen modeled in my whole childhood and my whole life, is that we are looking for somebody to complete us. And then if we find ourselves on a growth journey, starting to take a step back and take care of ourselves, because you're right. It's so easy to, the way that we talk to ourselves. I know I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I wouldn't talk the things that I tell myself to be better at and things like that. I wouldn't talk necessarily to a friend or somebody I care about that way. So being cognizant of that and changing that language, and not always sacrificing, because that's probably another pattern, wanting to sacrifice for everyone else and put yourself last.
Absolutely. The thing also that comes up is that oftentimes we listen to voices in our head that aren't even ours. Many of us have internalized our parents' voices, our teachers' voices, other voices that were maybe condescending or negative what they were. And then we perpetuate that even when they're not around. So when we start to recognize, hang on, that's not even my voice. Why am I listening to that? Again, awareness. When we become aware, we can change that, definitely. And there's so much to unpack. I'm just like, where to go with this? It is the thing about, it's like the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. You may feel overwhelming, but take what's the steps in front of you. If you notice that there's a voice showing up that isn't your own, question it, challenge it. Is it really true? Because 90% of the time it isn't. And then you can take power back, because you say, I'm not listening to that voice anymore. Part of my work I do is stuff from NLP called parts integration, which I love because it's so fun to play with. Parts integration in simplistic way or simple way is that we all have different parts of ourselves we talk to and talk to us. And when we notice one part's like telling us something negative or not working for us, we can actually have a conversation with that part. And usually because everything in us is attempting to keep us safe and ideally trying to help us feel okay. But how those parts do it oftentimes is very convoluted and messed up. So when we can work with those parts and reassign their jobs, which is all, it sounds very weird to say, but it really works, is that when we start realizing that part that was doing something negative to get a result, we can do something positive to get the same result. In fact, we'll get the right result this time versus the wrong result. It can be so healing, because then we just have it's almost like bringing the whole team onto the pitch to work together, the same goal versus working against each other. We have a committee inside at times, voices that we talk to, voices that we listen to, and it can get really noisy in our head sometimes.
It can. So like the different parts, when you're saying that, what I'm receiving and what I've kind of learned before is you're talking about maybe feelings of fear or anxiety or mistrust. Those are all the different voices. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I started naming some of them. One of them, the prickly one, I know myself very well, and sleep is so important for everybody, but definitely I know when I'm like my battery's running low and not getting enough sleep, I become more prickly, and I called that prickly Pam, because it's just like my nerve endings are raw. And noises, my husband, he was eating something and he knows me, and he goes, you're making me uncomfortable in my own home. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed. You're right. It's just noises. Like I don't have enough sleep. So prickly Pam is not me, but a part of me is what I'm, what you're saying for anyone who's listening. Right.
And also that what she's doing is working for you.
Yeah.
She's basically telling you to get sleep, but how she's doing it can be a bit uncomfortable to other people, like your husband.
Yeah, it's not my thing.
So you can actually maybe ask her, is another way you can let me know it's time to get some sleep without becoming so prickly, for example.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, that's the thing
Yeah,
about
I
this
think
stuff.
it's
It
fun.
can be playful, it can be fun as well. So it's not massively stuff, but the great thing is that because the parts have no greater significance or lesser significance than each other, they're all just parts inside. When you
Hmm.
start recognizing that, then the things that may appear to be really challenging are actually no, same thing as the other ones. You're
Yeah.
not getting enough sleep, the same thing as something massive. But because they're
Yeah.
all different parts, we can work with those. Anyway, that's a sidebar into a whole other conversation, I know.
Yeah, but it's a good conversation. It's good for people to hear, because I think so much of our society teaches us that we have to, there's this quote unquote like perfection, right? And we're supposed to just push out all the parts that are ugly and imperfect. Instead, it's what I'm hearing from you is we have to embrace all those parts to be able to truly love ourselves, truly
Mm-hmm.
be, as you're saying, relationship ready.
Yeah.
So if we could, I'd like to go into, I know you work with individuals to become relationship ready, but so you have somebody like you and I, we've already talked about, we didn't know about this relationship ready concept. You find yourself in in a relationship, in a
Yes.
marriage, and you're running patterns. Maybe this is going to cause curiosity and individuals who are listening and watching. Oh, what are my patterns? What, I know you're talking about therapy, but what are things people can maybe kind of to do to start recognizing the patterns,
Well,
or what can they do next?
that again, recognition, the awareness piece. If you notice something's happening, it's like, hang on a second, we've done this before and it's not working. That's a
Yeah.
good indication that you can do something about it, because unfortunately for most people, they're running things automatically. They're not even aware they're doing that. Their antagonism with their partner, or their, if they had an unconscious prickly Pam that was doing things
Yeah.
without being aware of it, then there's no opportunity to work on it. So it has to be awareness first. You have to be going, hang on a second, this isn't working. What are we doing wrong? What's missing? What are we doing to each other that's not working? Why are we not loving each other all the time? Those questions can be very provocative to give us some insight into, hang on a second, I've been doing this, it's not working. What can I do differently? Because some of
Mm-hmm.
the things we're talking about here don't require outside support. They can just be done internally. When you recognize, hang on, this isn't working, let's try something different.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying before about when talking about arguments should be done side by side as well, not face to face. When things don't work with each other, as I said, when I was very young, it wasn't a good thing. I'd quit and leave. I don't mean that level, but when something doesn't work and you can change it, having an honest conversation with each other, and yes, sitting on a park bench together facing the same direction is better, because especially if you're getting upset, because
Mm-hmm.
the one thing energetically, if you're facing your partner being upset with them, you're dumping toxic energy at them all the time.
Mm.
Unless they have good defenses, they're going to take it in, and that's not fun. So to do it side by side, even if you're venting, it's going out into the air, into the world, and not at your partner, which is a great way to communicate upset, just distress, other things too. So your partner can hold space for you, which is a powerful skill too. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing about understanding when things aren't working, if it's your partner keeps breaking agreements with you, that can be a simple thing. It can be so undermining, because the problem with broken agreements, for example, if they don't call you when they say they're going to call you, or they don't email you and say they're going to email you, or they don't show up when they said they would, those things are basically undermine the trust you have with your partner. So it can become very detrimental in the relationship. If you notice that early enough, you say, look, honey, I love you, but, or I love you, and if you can frame it that way, even
Yeah.
better. I love you, and when you promise to do this, you don't show up. I feel very disappointed, and it starts to undermine my feelings of trust. That conversation could be really healing right there without instant influence. And a little tip on this one for agreements. I learned this one many years ago in a seminar, so I just passed it along. With agreements, noticing, first of all, if both partners have the same weight on the agreement. Because oftentimes somebody says an agreement, the other person goes, sure, and doesn't take it in at all. So there's different levels
Mm-hmm.
of agreement keeping. But when you make an agreement, first of all, write it down in some way. Back in the old days, it'd be write down on your diary or in your calendar. Now it's putting in your phone calendar, so you keep note of it. So it reminds you to do it, so that way you don't forget. Second one is, and this is a big one, is say no more often. We have a
Yeah.
tendency sometimes to overcommit, say yes to too many things, and we don't get it all done, and we end up in a big problem. So being willing to say no as a healthy, positive choice versus I don't like you, so I'm saying no. It's like, no, not like that. I'm saying no so I can keep the rest of my agreements intact. That's
Yeah.
positive. So that's another one. That's 2. 3 is renegotiate, because the other part is you may have made a plan with somebody for the next Friday, but then you realize you got double booked. So like, can we move it to Saturday? It can be that simple. So
Yeah.
agreement keeping is a fundamental part of relationships. It's a very easy skill to negotiate and work on improving, because it does improve or decrease your level of trust with each other.
Yeah. That was very helpful. That's why I think I was kind of almost asking that question again in a different way. I understood the awareness piece, but you hit the nail on the head. Was I think the examples was what that was really helpful,
Thanks
and
for
the
asking.
power, yeah, the power of no. That was a good one. You saying that, because that's one of those I would say vulnerable or difficult conversations that maybe I would avoid. The people pleasing part, that especially growing up in the
Oh yeah,
Midwest, right? You
been there, done
smile
that.
and you help everybody and you say yes when you mean no. And that's not a loving thing to do, setting healthy boundaries and being in a relationship where you can be honest and say, I would love to do that, but not now, or
Yeah,
not this week, or not like, or like you said, the renegotiation. How about, this? So you're making sure that you're both getting your needs met and not sacrificing, building resentment,
yeah,
because I can see that being the pattern or
absolutely. That's the
the way
thing,
you
is that we say
suggest.
yes out of resentment. That's not healthy either.
No.
So the thing about saying no, and it's one of the key things, is you can say no without being upset about it. You say
Yeah.
no in a loving way. And
Yeah.
you can also say no with renegotiation. Say no, this isn't going to line up for me now. Can we do it in a week's time, or tomorrow, or tonight, whatever that is? Because the trouble is, we do this tendency, especially when we're loving, we're supposed to be agreeable.
Yeah.
So loving, we should say yes to everything, which is horrendous if you're trying to plan your life.
Yeah. It
So
is.
yeah, so having that freedom to say no, and it's almost great if you and your partner can say to each other, look, I something I ask a lot of you. I need you to say no when it's appropriate for you, not for me, but for you, because then I feel okay that I haven't overdone it. Because the other part is sometimes someone can be overbearing. They keep asking things of their partner without listening to see if they'll say no. So if you create that safety for each other, so the person who is being asked of things or is being asked to make agreements can say no to some of them freely, comfortably, without any judgment, that can rebuild a whole new paradigm of being in a relationship that's healthy, because yes and no are important parts of a relationship.
Yeah. And this is so perfect that we hadn't talked about going here in our conversation, but with us being in that container of ethical
Ethical
sales,
sales,
everybody,
yeah.
that's exactly what my mind too. I wondered if that yours did too. So we can give Marla and her program a shout out.
Mm-hmm.
But we were talking about how everybody has this negative connotation around hearing the word sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or most people, I shouldn't say everybody, but that really, Marla has taught us that every conversation, anything in our lives where we're soliciting a yes or a no, that really is, it's a sale. And the other part of it is being open, like you were saying earlier, being open and willing to receive a yes or a no and be okay with either. And I can, yeah,
Yes. The
yeah,
biggest thing that I got from that part of the topic from Marla was that no is actually a sale.
it
Because
is.
the thing is, what a sale is about is getting somebody to give you a clear decision, yes or no.
Yes.
And it's the stuff in the middle, it's the messy stuff they've got to work on. And that was such a freedom, because I realize now, because I always had thought the idea that sale, they've got to say yes to me. And in
Yeah.
relationship, definitely in relationship, they
Same
can't.
thing. Yeah.
But when they say no, that's also a sale, because it's a clear understanding, it's a clear decision from the other person. And so having that clarity that yes and no are both sales, as in both complete sales, is a powerful freedom, because then we recognize that it's the messy stuff that we don't clarify that gets in the way. But a clear yes is easy, a clear no is easy. And they're no
Yeah.
different in a sense, which is so cool.
It is so cool. And from a relationship standpoint, that's amazing, because that used to
Oh,
be
yeah.
something that it's exactly like you were saying, the people pleasing, and
Oh,
it shows that I don't love you if I don't say yes to wanting to do whatever thing, even if I'm,
yes.
tired or whatever the reason is, and to be able to be really honest with your partner, like you said, and have them receive that and be okay with that and not run
It's
away.
That's the thing, is it becomes so conditional, and it's almost like, we base our love on the number of yeses we get. That is extremely messed up.
That is.
Yeah. It's about respect and about trust. And if the person keeps saying yes and you can't trust the yes anymore because it keeps breaking agreements, how can you love that? So
Yeah.
having the honor within each other to say no to each other when it's appropriate and say yes when it's appropriate, those clarities really builds trust and unity and intimacy in the relationship as well.
It does. Yeah, and with all of the hundreds of thousands of actually thousands of couples that we represented at our firm at Immigration for Couples, I see it's so sad that couples will have conflict. The immigrant relationships are hard, and then if you're going through an immigration process, it's even
Even
more
harder.
stressful.
Yeah.
And I want for the couples who are going through an immigration process, conflict arises a lot more frequently about the process, and I do see exactly what you're saying, a feeling of is there something wrong with us? Is this going to work? But conflict and those arguments are such a natural part of it. And I think, like you were also saying earlier, there's so much power in just starting at least to be aware and observe. And whether you take time to just sit and reflect with it or journal, but start becoming aware, because it really is what I'm hearing from you. It's less about the argument itself, but maybe the theme, the pattern, becoming aware of that, and then making a conscious shift. Is that fair? Yeah.
That's very fair indeed. Yeah. The thing is and yeah, there's a thing when outside stresses happen in a relationship, and immigration is a massive one, understandably. It sometimes becomes the point where we look at the partner through the lens of the immigrations in between, which is not accurate.
Yeah.
Really, it's the fact that the immigration is outside the relationship, and you remember that you're two together, not like against the world, but in the sense of like you're standing together in unity, dealing with that outside influence, which is the immigration process. That's the real power of coming together in a relationship.
Yes, exactly. I think that's amazing. I've loved our conversation today, and I know that we could talk forever, and maybe we'll have to do another episode, a part two. Yeah, that'd be awesome. But I would love for you to share what is the best way for viewers, for listeners to get in contact with you if they want to learn more about your work or schedule an appointment. Where's the best place for them to do that?
Well, basically the easiest way to find me is on my website, which is my name. I've gave up trying to brand everything. It's just called my name. So my name, which is Barry Selby, is my site, barryselby.com. On the homepage of that right now, you can sign up for a discovery session with me, so have a complimentary conversation. You book it on my calendar. And at the bottom of the screen is a link to my email list, where you can definitely sign up for all my notifications. And I do have 2 podcasts that I co-host. And one of them is done as a web show, so that goes out as an email to my list every week. So you get to see my conversation with my co-host about dating, about relationships, all these other things too. Shortly, and it may be after this episode launches, I believe, but I'm not sure exactly when it'll happen. I'm putting together, because we're talking about relationship readiness, I'm creating a relationship readiness assessment that will be out shortly. So if you want to find out more about that, definitely join my email list, which will be a very interesting journey to navigate and understand where you are in the journey and what you really want in relationship. So that's coming. So definitely join my email list and book a session with me if you want to find out more, and let's talk.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much. And as soon as your relationship readiness assessment is out, we will definitely share it with our viewers and audience. I want to take it. I think, it's just everybody who doesn't love a quiz to learn more about yourself. And so
ideally, that will be the way people treat it. Yes, it'd be fun.
Yeah. And it'll be, I'm excited to see. And as soon as it comes out, we'll make sure we share it with everyone so they can see where they stand and what support they might need to grow. So thank you again, Barry. I've loved our conversation today, and until next time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. We really enjoyed having you here on our podcast today. Please leave notes, whether you're watching this on our YouTube channel or Apple. If you have comments, questions, anything, other topics that you want to hear about, please feel free to put that in the notes. All right, everybody, take care. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe so that you never miss an upload. And if you'd like more resources to help you on your immigration journey, please visit our website at immigrationforcouples.com, where you can access our free resource center. Links are in the description below.